It was a quiet evening in the small, sleepy town of Willow Creek, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and life moved at a slow, steady pace. Sam Harding was no exception to the calmness of his surroundings. A man in his early 30s, he worked as a mechanic at the local garage. He had always preferred the peace of solitude, finding comfort in the hum of engines and the simplicity of fixing things. People often called him a bit of a loner, but Sam didn't mind. He was content with his life, far removed from the hustle and bustle of the world beyond. Sam's house, a small cabin on the edge of town, sat at the foot of a forest. On most nights he would sit outside looking up at the stars, fascinated by the idea that there was so much more to the universe than what he could see with his own eyes. He had always dreamt of traveling beyond the earth, of going to places no one had ever heard of. But he knew that these were just dreams, fantasies that would never come true. Still, the stars called to him, and that night was no different. As Sam worked late into the evening fixing a car that had been dropped off at the garage, he heard a strange sound. It wasn't the usual hum of the engine or the wind rustling through the trees. This was something else, something that sent a chill down his spine. The sound grew louder, a low rumble that seemed to shake the very ground beneath him. Sam stepped out of the garage, wiping his hands on a rag as he looked up into the sky. For a brief moment, the night sky seemed to light up with a bright streak of light. It was almost like a shooting star, except it didn't follow the usual path. The object was too large, too fast. And then, with a sudden, thunderous crash, it disappeared behind the trees just beyond the forest. Sam stood frozen for a moment. The sound of the crash had echoed through the night air, but there was no sign of anyone else rushing outside to investigate. The town was silent, as it always was, but Sam couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just happened. Without a second thought, Sam grabbed a flashlight and set off toward the forest. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but his curiosity was too strong to ignore. He wasn't afraid, he never had been, but there was something about that strange light in the sky that felt otherworldly. The forest was thick with trees, and the air was cool and damp. Sam pushed through the underbrush, his heart beating a little faster with each step. He had no idea what he would find, but the need to discover it felt overwhelming. The deeper he walked into the forest, the more he felt a sense of unease. The sound of his footsteps was the only thing breaking the silence, and the occasional rustle of leaves made him look over his shoulder, unsure of whether he was truly alone. After what felt like hours of walking, Sam finally reached the clearing. The wreckage was scattered across the forest floor, twisted metal and shattered pieces of machinery. The air smelled faintly of something burning, but it wasn't enough to overpower the eerie stillness of the scene. The thing that struck him the most, however, was the figure lying next to the wreckage. At first glance, Sam thought it was a person, someone who had been caught in the crash. But as he got closer, he saw that it was no ordinary human. The figure was a woman, but not like any woman Sam had ever seen. Her skin was a pale shade of blue, almost glowing faintly in the dim light of the clearing. Her features were delicate, almost otherworldly, with sharp cheekbones and long, dark hair that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. She was unconscious, lying on the ground amidst the wreckage, her clothes torn and covered in dirt. Sam's heart raced as he knelt beside her. He had no idea what he was looking at, but something inside him told him that this wasn't just a regular accident. This was something far more extraordinary. The woman's breathing was shallow but steady. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, though she appeared to be completely unaware of her surroundings. Sam looked around, but there was no sign of anyone else, no other spacecraft or beings, just this woman alone in the middle of the forest. Without hesitation, Sam gently lifted her into his arms. She was light, almost weightless, and though her skin felt strangely cold to the touch, Sam could sense no immediate danger. He had no idea what to do, he was no doctor, but something about her made him want to protect her, to ensure that she was safe. Carrying her back through the forest, Sam tried to make sense of what he had just witnessed. Was she human? If she was, where had she come from? Why was she alone? The questions filled his mind as he walked, but he had no answers. All he knew was that he couldn't just leave her out there, not when she needed help. By the time he reached his cabin, the night had fallen completely, and the sky was filled with stars. Sam carried the woman inside and laid her down on his couch. He covered her with a blanket, though he wasn't sure what she would need. His cabin was simple, a small living room, a kitchen, and a bedroom, but it was warm and it would have to do. Sam paced around the room, wondering what he should do next. He couldn't call the authorities. They would never believe him. They would think he was crazy, that he had imagined the whole thing. And even if they did believe him, what could they do? The woman was from somewhere else, somewhere far beyond Earth. Hours passed, and Sam watched over her as she remained unconscious, her breathing steady but shallow. The quiet of the cabin felt almost suffocating, as if the weight of the situation was pressing down on him. What was he supposed to do now? How could he help someone who might not even be from this world? Eventually, Sam sat down beside her. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while he felt a sense of purpose. He had no idea what had happened to her, or why she had crashed on Earth, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to leave her alone in the woods. He had to find out what had brought her here, and why she was so different from anything he had ever known. Sam sat in his small cabin, the ticking of the old clock on the wall the only sound in the quiet room. His mind raced, thoughts swirling like the dust motes dancing in the beams of moonlight that filtered through the window. The woman, this mysterious, otherworldly person he had found in the forest, lay on his couch, still unconscious. She had been in his cabin for hours now, but she hadn't moved. Sam, unsure of what to do next, kept glancing over at her. The quiet concern on his face reflected a growing sense of helplessness. He knew she was different, there was something unmistakable about her. But what was she? Where had she come from? And more importantly, how could he help her? Suddenly, Sam's thoughts were interrupted by a soft groan. He froze, his eyes darting to the woman on the couch. She stirred, her fingers twitching slightly as if she were waking from a deep sleep. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes the color of pale silver, almost glowing in the dim room. For a moment, Sam thought he was imagining it, but then the woman blinked, focusing on him with an intensity that made his heart race. She looked confused, disoriented. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. It was as if she were trying to speak but couldn't quite form the sounds. Sam quickly stood up, his hands raised in a calming gesture. He wasn't sure if she would understand him, but he had to try. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice gentle, hoping not to startle her. The woman's gaze flickered to him, then around the room as if she were trying to make sense of her surroundings. She seemed to be struggling with something. Her breathing became more rapid, her eyes wide with alarm. Sam took a step closer, but then she recoiled slightly as if afraid of him. He stopped immediately, not wanting to push her too hard. "It's all right," Sam said, his voice low and reassuring. "You're safe here. You don't have to be scared." The woman continued to stare at him, her expression unreadable before she tried again to speak. This time there was a faint hum, almost like a melody, but still no words. Sam watched carefully, trying to understand what she was trying to convey. It was then that he noticed something unusual. Her skin, a soft shade of blue, shimmered faintly, like the glow of the stars he had spent so many nights watching. Her body seemed to give off a subtle energy, almost like a faint pulse, and Sam realized with a start that she wasn't just human. She wasn't anything like him at all. He tried again. "Can you understand me?" The woman looked at him for a long time, her silver eyes searching his face as if trying to read him. Finally, she nodded slowly, but it was clear that she wasn't comfortable with the situation. Sam could see the panic building in her eyes again. He didn't want to make her feel trapped, so he took a step back, giving her more space. She seemed to calm down a little, her shoulders relaxing. Then, as if remembering something, she raised her hand slightly, as if reaching for something. Sam didn't understand, but he followed her gaze, wondering if she was trying to find a way to communicate. That's when he noticed a small device strapped to her wrist. A strange piece of technology that looked like it had been damaged in the crash. "Is this yours?" Sam asked, pointing at the device. The woman looked at her wrist and then back at him, nodding weakly. She reached for it, trying to activate it, but the device sparked and flickered, showing no signs of life. Sam could see the frustration on her face. She tapped it a few more times, but the device remained lifeless. He could sense that this was important to her, that it was somehow linked to everything that had happened. Without thinking, Sam knelt beside her and gently took the device from her wrist. "Let me help," he said, his voice soft. The woman hesitated for a moment, but then she nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. Sam examined the device carefully, realizing that it was far more advanced than anything he had ever seen. The technology was alien, yet there was something familiar about it. He couldn't make sense of it, but he was determined to try. After a few minutes of tinkering, Sam managed to open a small panel on the side of the device. Inside, there were tiny wires and components that seemed almost alive, glowing with soft light. He carefully adjusted them, trying to see if he could get the device working again. Suddenly, with a soft beep, the device came to life. A faint holographic screen appeared in the air in front of them, showing a series of strange symbols and patterns. The woman's eyes widened in recognition. She reached out, her fingers brushing the screen, and the symbols shifted and changed like a language Sam couldn't understand. Is this how you communicate?" Sam asked, still unsure of what was happening. The woman nodded again, her expression more focused now. She tapped the device a few more times, and to Sam's amazement, the symbols began to rearrange themselves into something more familiar. Slowly, letters formed on the screen, one by one. "I am Lyra. I am from a distant world." Sam's heart skipped a beat. Lyra, that was her name. He repeated it softly to himself as if it were some kind of reassurance. "You're from another world?" Sam asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Lyra's eyes flickered with something like sadness. She nodded again, her fingers hovering over the screen as if choosing her words carefully. Finally, new letters appeared. "I was sent to observe. My ship was damaged. I am alone." Sam's mind raced. This was too much to take in at once. A woman, no, a being from another world stranded here with no way to get back home. He felt a deep sense of responsibility for her now. She had no one else. She was completely alone. "I'm here to help you, Lyra," Sam said, his voice filled with determination. "I'll do whatever I can." Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes softening. She seemed to trust him, in some way, though Sam could tell there was much more to her story than she had revealed so far. As Sam sat back, still processing everything, Lyra's gaze moved toward the window. She appeared to be searching for something, perhaps a sign, a way to reach her people. Sam wondered what kind of world she had come from, and whether it was even possible for her to return. But for now he knew one thing for sure. She was safe here with him, and he wasn't going to let her face whatever was coming alone. Sam sat in his cabin, his mind still spinning from the events of the past few days. He had never imagined that his quiet life in Willow Creek would be turned upside down by a mysterious alien named Lyra. She was sitting on the couch across from him, silently watching the world outside through the window. Her silver eyes were filled with a mix of curiosity and sadness. Sam could tell she missed her home, but she had also begun to trust him. Though they had made some progress in communication, Sam still had many unanswered questions. Her home planet, her mission, the mysterious device, there was so much he didn't understand. He had tried asking Lyra more about her world, but she was still too hesitant to share everything. She seemed afraid of something, and Sam wasn't sure what. Was she hiding something, or was she just unsure of how to explain it? Suddenly, a strange sound broke his thoughts. It was a low hum, followed by the unmistakable sound of a vehicle approaching. Sam's heart skipped a beat. No one ever came this far out into the forest. The only people who ever passed by were the occasional hiker, or someone lost on their way to town. But this wasn't the sound of a car or truck. It was something else, something he couldn't quite place. His first thought was to grab Lyra and hide her in the back of the cabin, but he quickly stopped himself. He didn't want her to feel like a prisoner. Besides, who could have found her? It was impossible for anyone to know she was here. The sound grew louder, and then there was the unmistakable screech of brakes. Sam rushed to the window, peering through the curtain. His heart sank. Outside, parked on the dirt road in front of his cabin, was a large metallic vehicle unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was sleek, silver, and shaped in a way that made it seem both elegant and dangerous. Sam's instincts told him that this was no ordinary car. Before he could think of what to do next, the door to the vehicle slid open, and out stepped a group of women. They were dressed in dark, form-fitting uniforms that looked both practical and futuristic. They moved with purpose, their eyes scanning the surroundings with a sharpness that made Sam's heart race. There were 4 of them, all tall and athletic, with an air of authority about them. But it wasn't just their appearance that made Sam nervous. It was the way they seemed to be searching for something, or someone. Lyra had been watching from the couch, and when the women stepped out of the vehicle, her face went pale. Her hands trembled, and Sam could see the panic in her eyes. She knew who they were. "They've come for me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Sam's stomach churned. "Who are they?" he asked, his mind racing. Lyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood up and walked toward the window, her eyes locked on the women outside. She seemed frozen, her body tense with fear. Finally, after a long pause, she spoke. "They're from my world," she said, her voice low and strained. "They are part of a group called the Inara. They are sent to track down people like me, those who leave the planet without permission." Sam's mind struggled to process what Lyra was telling him. "So they're like the police or something?" Lyra nodded. "In a way. But they don't just arrest us. They take us back to our leaders. If we've broken any rules, we're punished." Sam's eyes widened in shock. "Punished? What kind of punishment?" Lyra looked away, her expression clouded with something dark. "It's not something I can explain, but I know it's something I can't face." "Not again." Sam didn't know what to say. He had already done so much to protect her, but now it seemed like he was being dragged into a conflict far beyond his understanding. He glanced out the window again and saw that the women were approaching the cabin, their movements swift and confident. "I have to hide," Lyra said, her voice urgent. "Please, Sam, you have to help me." Without thinking, Sam grabbed her arm and led her quickly toward the back of the cabin. There was a small storage room in the back, filled with old tools and equipment he didn't use much. He pushed open the door, urging Lyra inside. "Stay here," Sam said, his voice firm. "Don't come out until I say it's safe." Lyra hesitated, her eyes filled with fear, but she nodded. She understood. Sam closed the door gently behind her, then rushed back to the front of the cabin, trying to think of a plan. He had to buy them some time. The women outside would be looking for Lyra, but they wouldn't expect him to be involved. Maybe he could convince them he hadn't seen anyone. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was the only one he had. Sam opened the front door slowly, stepping outside with his hands raised in a gesture of peace. The women were standing near the vehicle, their eyes immediately locking onto him. The leader of the group, a tall woman with dark hair and sharp features, stepped forward. "You there," she called out, her voice commanding. "Have you seen anyone, a girl? About this tall with blue skin?" Sam swallowed hard, trying to keep his voice steady. "I haven't seen anyone," he said, shaking his head. "Just me out here working on my truck." The woman studied him for a long moment, her gaze piercing. Sam could feel the weight of her scrutiny, as if she were reading every part of him. Finally, she nodded. "All right," she said, her voice cold but not unkind. "We're looking for someone. If you see anything unusual, let us know." Sam nodded quickly, trying not to let his nervousness show. "Sure, I'll keep an eye out." The woman turned to her companions, giving them a signal. They walked away, heading toward the woods to search further. Sam watched them leave, his heart still pounding in his chest. He waited until they were out of sight, then rushed back into the cabin. He opened the door to the storage room, finding Lyra still hiding inside, trembling with fear. Sam breathed a sigh of relief when he saw she was unharmed. "They're gone," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "For now, at least." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes full of gratitude but also fear. "They'll be back," she said, her voice shaky. "They won't give up." Sam nodded, his mind racing. He knew things were about to get a lot more complicated. The Inara would be relentless, and they had no idea just how far they were willing to go to find her. But Sam wasn't going to let them take her, not without a fight. He turned to Lyra, his expression hardening with determination. "We'll figure this out together." The next few days felt like a blur to Sam. His once peaceful life in Willow Creek had now been overtaken by secrets, danger, and the constant fear of being discovered. Lyra was still hiding in the cabin, and Sam did everything he could to keep her safe. He knew the women from the Inara tribe would return, and when they did, Sam had no idea what would happen next. Every time he went into town, he was careful, keeping his distance from everyone, as if the entire town knew what he was hiding. It was becoming harder to go unnoticed. The tribe's search seemed relentless, and he could sense that they were getting closer. They had to be. It wasn't just about finding Lyra anymore. It was about finding a way to get her back to their world. Sam didn't know what would happen to her if they succeeded, but he was sure it wouldn't be good. One evening, after another tense day spent waiting in silence, Sam sat in his small kitchen sipping on a cup of coffee. He needed a moment to collect his thoughts, but his mind kept returning to Lyra and the strange device that had brought them together. He had spent hours trying to learn more about it, But it seemed like the technology was far beyond anything he could understand. It flickered with strange symbols, and he often found himself lost in the patterns. Suddenly he was pulled from his thoughts by a faint noise outside. His heart raced as he stood up quickly, setting his cup down. Through the window he saw the faint glow of headlights in the distance. This wasn't the normal car that passed by every so often. This was something different. It was a signal that the Inara tribe was back. Sam's heart sank. He had hoped they wouldn't return so soon. He turned toward the back of the cabin where Lyra had been hiding. He couldn't risk her being discovered, not now. He rushed to the small storage room and knocked gently on the door. "Lyra, they're here," he whispered, his voice urgent. "You need to hide, quickly." There was a brief silence before Lyra's soft voice came from behind the door. "I'm ready. I can't stay hidden forever, Sam. They'll find me." Sam didn't want to admit it, but she was right. He couldn't keep her locked away for much longer. The situation was becoming more dangerous by the minute, and he had no idea how long he could keep up the ruse. Lyra wasn't just someone in need of protection. She was a part of something much larger, something Sam wasn't yet ready to understand. "Just stay hidden, okay? I'll figure out a way to protect you, I promise," Sam said, trying to keep his voice steady. He stepped away from the door, rushing to the front of the cabin as the lights outside grew brighter. The sound of the vehicle's engine stopped, and there was the unmistakable sound of footsteps. The Inara tribe was here. Sam's stomach churned, but he took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. There was no turning back now. As he opened the front door, he saw the same group of women from before. The leader, the one with dark hair and sharp features, stepped forward, her eyes scanning Sam's cabin with a calculating gaze. Her name was Yara, and Sam could tell that she wasn't just the leader of the group. She was in charge of more than just the search for Lyra. There was something about her that gave off a feeling of authority, as if she had more power than she was letting on. "Hello? Sam?" Yara said coolly, her voice carrying an edge. "We've returned. You must know by now why we're here." Sam swallowed, trying to keep his composure. He nodded, though his mind was racing. He didn't want to lie, but he also didn't want to give anything away. If Lyra was going to stay hidden, Sam needed to be careful with every word. "I don't know what you mean," Sam replied, trying to sound as casual as possible. "I've told you before, I haven't seen anyone." Yara's gaze didn't waver. She seemed to study Sam for a long moment, almost as if she could see right through him. It made him uneasy. "We're not here to play games, Sam. We know Lyra is here. You don't need to pretend." Sam felt a chill run down his spine. How did they know? Had they been watching him all this time? "Why would you think she's here?" Sam asked, trying to buy time. "I haven't seen anyone. Why would I risk helping a stranger like her?" Yara stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied him. "Because you're hiding something," she said softly, her tone calm but cold. "And we're here to find out what that is." Sam's heart was pounding. He had to think fast. The women in front of him weren't just looking for Lyra. They were after something much bigger. Something that Sam still didn't fully understand. "What do you want with her?" Sam asked, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. "Why can't she just stay here? What's the big deal?" Yara's eyes flashed with something. Anger, perhaps, or maybe frustration, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to one of the other women, a tall figure with short blonde hair, and nodded. The woman stepped forward, holding something in her hand. Sam could see it was the same device that Lyra had been carrying, the one that had allowed her to communicate with him. "This device is crucial," Yara said, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "It holds the key to Lyra's mission, and we need it. We need her to return with us." Sam's mind raced. This was about more than just Lyra. It was about the device and the mission she had been sent on. He still had no idea what the device really did, but it was clear that it held some kind of power. Power that the Inara were desperate to control. What is this mission? "What are you planning to do with her?" Sam demanded, feeling the pressure build. Yara smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was cold, calculating. "We don't plan to hurt her. We simply need her to complete the task she was sent for. Earth is a key part of a much larger plan, one that involves the survival of our people. Lyra's role is essential, and she cannot refuse." Sam felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something about the way Yara spoke that made him uneasy. She wasn't just talking about a mission. She was talking about something that could affect the fate of worlds. Lyra wasn't just a person caught in the middle of a larger conflict. She was a pawn in a game much bigger than anyone could imagine. "I won't let you take her," Sam said, his voice suddenly firm. He wasn't sure where this strength was coming from, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let them take Lyra. Not without a fight. Yara studied him, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she stepped back and signaled for the other women to follow her. "We'll be back," she said simply. "And when we return, you'll have to make a choice. Either you help us or you'll regret it." With that, the group turned and walked away, leaving Sam standing in front of his cabin, his heart still racing. He had managed to avoid the worst for now, but he knew this wasn't over. They would return. And when they did, he would have to make a decision, one that could change everything. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind to Sam. The Inara tribe had made it clear. They would return, and when they did, they would not leave without Lyra. Sam had been prepared for the worst, but the weight of the decision that lay ahead pressed heavily on him. He couldn't ignore the fact that Lyra was from another world, and whatever she was involved in was much bigger than he could ever have imagined. He spent his days pacing the small cabin, wrestling with what to do next. Lyra, for her part, was quieter than usual, her eyes often distant as she gazed out of the window. Sam could tell that she was troubled, but whenever he tried to talk to her, she avoided giving him clear answers. The mystery of her mission was like a thick fog between them. It was as if she was trying to protect him from the truth, but Sam knew that whatever it was only a matter of time before it all came to light. That afternoon, as Sam worked on his truck, he heard the familiar hum of the Inara's vehicle in the distance. His heart sank, but there was no turning back now. He could feel the ground shifting beneath him, as if everything he had known was about to change. He wiped his hands on his shirt and walked inside to find Lyra. "They're back," he said, trying to keep his voice calm, though he could feel the tension building. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes full of sorrow. "I knew this day would come," she said softly. "I just didn't want to believe it." Sam's heart broke at the look on her face. "I won't let them take you," he said firmly, though deep down he knew that they were running out of time. The women from the tribe were determined, and their patience was wearing thin. There was a long pause, and then Lyra finally spoke. "Sam, you have to understand, I didn't come here by choice. I didn't even know Earth existed until I was sent on this mission. The tribe, they need me to finish what I started. But I can't, not like this." Sam stepped closer, his hand reaching out to comfort her. "What do you mean? What's so important about your mission?" Lyra hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. "It's about the future of my people. My world. It's dying. The Inara tribe was sent to find new planets, new resources. Earth was one of the places chosen. But what they didn't tell me was that they plan to take over. They want to use your planet for their own survival, and they don't care who they hurt in the process." Sam was stunned. He had never imagined that this was the reason Lyra had come to Earth. He had thought she was simply stranded, lost in a foreign world. But now it was clear that she had been sent here for a much darker purpose. "So what happens now?" Sam asked, his voice filled with worry. Lyra stood up, her gaze distant. "I have to stop them. I have to find a way to warn your people before it's too late. But I can't do it alone." The hum of the Inara's vehicle grew louder, and Sam knew there was no more time to think. He grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her toward the back of the cabin. "We have to go," he said, his voice urgent. Lyra nodded, but there was a sadness in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Sam. I didn't want to involve you in this. I never wanted you to be part of my world." "You didn't have a choice," Sam said, his voice firm. "And neither did I." They slipped out the back door, moving quickly toward the woods. The Inara tribe was closing in, but Sam was determined to do whatever it took to protect Lyra. He had spent enough time in the shadows, watching his world change. Now he had to fight for it. They moved through the trees, carefully avoiding the path the Inara had taken earlier. Sam's heart pounded in his chest as they moved deeper into the forest, the sound of the tribe's footsteps growing faint behind them. They reached the edge of the woods, where a small clearing led to the river that ran near Sam's cabin. He had been there before, many times. It was his place of escape, a place where he could think and be alone. But now it felt like the edge of the world. "I have to contact my people," Lyra said, her voice filled with determination. "They're the only ones who can stop the Inara. I've already sent a signal once, but they won't know how to find me without a clear location." Sam nodded. Let's do it. Lyra stepped forward, pulling the small device from her wrist. She tapped it a few times and a small holographic screen flickered to life in front of them. The symbols on the screen swirled for a moment before they rearranged themselves into something more recognizable. Coordinates. This is it, Lyra said, her voice filled with a sense of relief. If I can send this signal to my people, they can find me. And together, we can stop the Inara from using your planet. But just as Lyra began to tap the device, a voice called out from behind them. Stop right there. Sam froze, his body tense. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The Inara were here. Yara, the leader of the tribe, stepped forward, her eyes filled with cold fury. You think you can run from us? She demanded. You can't escape your mission, Lyra. It's already too late. Sam stepped in front of Lyra, his body protective. You'll have to go through me first. Yara's gaze flickered with amusement. You're brave, Sam, but you're also foolish. You think you can stop us? You have no idea what you're up against, Sam's mind raced. He knew he couldn't take on the Inara alone. But he wasn't alone anymore. Lyra was here, and together they might just have a chance. You're not going to get away with this, Sam said, his voice steady. We won't let you destroy Earth. Lyra stepped forward, her face set with determination. I've seen the future of my people, Yara, and I won't let you sacrifice anyone for the survival of your tribe. The tension in the air was thick as Yara stepped closer, her eyes narrowed in anger. You are a traitor, Lyra, and you will regret this. But before Yara could take another step, there was a sudden blinding light. The holographic device in Lyra's hand flared to life, sending a signal into the sky. The ground beneath them seemed to vibrate as something large approached from above. Sam shielded his eyes, and when he looked up, he saw a spacecraft descending through the clouds. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before, sleek and shining with a power that made Sam's heart race. The Inara tribe froze, their faces filled with shock as the ship landed softly on the ground. A figure stepped out, tall, imposing, and unmistakably alien. But unlike the Inara, this being was not here to conquer. It was here to stop them. Lyra's eyes widened in recognition. It's them, she whispered. My people. The figure raised a hand, and the Inara tribe, still stunned, stepped back. You will not harm this planet, the figure said, their voice commanding. Lyra has completed her mission, and now it's time for you to return home. Yara glared at the newcomer, her fists clenched. You think you can stop us? This planet is ours. The figure stepped forward, unfazed. No, this planet belongs to its people, and we will not allow you to take it from them. With that, the Inara tribe was forced to retreat, their plans foiled. Sam stood beside Lyra, watching as the alien visitors took control of the situation. It was over. Lyra turned to Sam, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, she said softly. You've saved more than just me. You've saved us all. Sam smiled, his heart swelling with pride. We did it, he said, his voice steady. As Lyra's people took over the responsibility of ensuring Earth's safety, Sam realized that his life would never be the same again. He wasn't just a mechanic from a small town anymore. He was part of something much larger, something that connected him to the stars. And with Lyra at his side, he was ready for whatever came next.